And welcome to another video of Thriving Blind. I hope that you can see behind me that we've had our first significant snowfall here in the Philadelphia area. And I lived in Chicagoland for a few years. It's actually where my two boys were born. So all of my friends back there are probably cracking up that I call, 3.5 inches of snow significant. But for our town here, it was significant over the weekend. And why am I telling you this snow story? Well, the thing is, every year our first significant snowfall reminds me of one of my worst moments as a mom. Isn't that nice? And it doesn't have a heck of a lot to do with snow. Well, it sort of does. I love the snow. I love playing with the kids in the snow. I love getting a winter workout, shoveling snow, until there's too many snowstorms in a row. Then I don't really care about that workout anymore. And I really love, you can't even see on my deck behind me, all the stuff that certain people around this house did not clean up at the end of the fall season and put away before snow came. So the snow is covering it. So I don't have to look at all the stuff that didn't get picked up off the deck. But so why does it remind me of one of my worst times as a mom? Well, my oldest, Michael, is about to turn 17. So let's just take that in for a moment. I have a child that is almost 17. Little heart flutter there. But about 13 years ago, when Michael was 4, did I do my math right? I've been sick for a few days, so I'm going to just take in the math. Anyway, so when Michael was 4, I had a new baby. I had Mitchell, who was about 6 months old at the time. And as everyone knows, because I'm very open about the fact that I did not handle Michael's blindness diagnosis very well in the very beginning. I was in denial. I was upset. I had no idea what to expect. And then, of course, we've learned that over the course of my journey, I learned about the tools and folks that are thriving, and life is good. However, back then, when he was 4, I thought that I was really on the road. I was in full acceptance. We were thriving, what I thought was thriving in acceptance. I mean, Michael was in the local preschool. He was doing amazing. He was going to friends' houses on our street and in his play group without me. I mean, he was independent. He was this blind child that was independent from me, right? So I thought. Now, full disclosure, I did when he was about maybe 2.5 or 3. I had researched a lot about the tools of blindness and asked our early intervention specialist about the white cane. I should have music in the background. Dun, dun, dun. For those of you that are struggling with the fact that your vision, if you're an adult and your vision has declined so much that you know you really need the white cane, but you just can't bring yourself to do it. Same with the parents that you know they need the white cane. Your child does, but you can't bring yourself to do it. Why is that? I mean, everybody I talk to kind of agrees that it's that final sign to the world that, hey, I don't have enough vision anymore. And when you're still struggling and still trying to grapple with all of it, it's a tough one. I get it. Believe me, I totally get it. Because we didn't get it back then. So I had asked about the cane, and the vision specialist had said, gosh, he has so much vision. I heard that a lot. He has so much vision that there's really no need for it because he's doing so well. And oh my gosh, look how independent he is. So I was cheering. I was cheering because it was one less thing that I had to worry about, right? One less thing on my plate, one less signal to the world that my son's journey was going to be quite different than I thought. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong and more detrimental to Michael, who's doing fine now. I mean, he did just travel back to Chicago last summer independently to a college campus he had never been to before. So he is doing fine now. But back then, oh my gosh, what horrible advice and what a bad decision. And I'll tell you why. Yes, he was doing amazing. He memorized his preschool. He memorized our house. He memorized the route to his friends' houses. I mean, he was 4. They didn't have that many friends, and they were our neighbors, one door down, a couple doors down. And he was always going. We were so lucky next door to us. Our houses were pretty close together. And right next door to us were his good friends, Lexi and Macy. And they would run between the houses. They were all pretty much the same age and share the swing set in the backyard and all that kind of stuff. So this particular winter out in Chicago, we had significant snow for Chicago, plus all the snow that was already on the ground. And I had this new baby, so Michael was going next door to play with his friends, and we did the same routine that we did almost every day back then. I would stand at my door, I would let them know that he was coming over. I'd stand at my door. My neighbor Debbie would stand at her door. Michael would go down the driveway, make the left on the sidewalk, make the left up her driveway, and into the house and play for the afternoon. So many times we did that, right? Perfect system. He knew where everything was. So this one particular day, it was time for him to come home, and we did the reverse. Debbie called me, said, okay, he's on his way. She stood at her door. He went down to come back. I stood at my door to wait for him. The problem was Mitchell had done something at that moment. I don't know if he threw up or whatever he did. So I had to grab something, and now I'm, running to the door to watch for him. My neighbor was watching from her door. Well, Michael had everything memorized and everything was wonderful, except for the fact that when he walked out at that moment, by the time he went down where he was supposed to go down the driveway and turn on the sidewalk, he kept going. He never saw the sidewalk where he was supposed to turn, and his steps got all messed up because, I don't know, the sun was shining in a certain way that was glaring off the snow, and I think there had been so much snow and salt and stuff on the street that it wasn't black anymore, so you couldn't see that high contrast, so it looked white. And long story short, in the 15 seconds that it would take for him to go from one door to the next, he got completely turned around, was walking in his little sneakers in like knee deep in snow, which sounds horrible, but he was really short. So it was probably only like 6-7 inches of snow, and he was headed for the street. And I could hear, as I'm running to the door to meet him, I could hear him yelling from out front and panicking. You know what that does to your heart, right? So I'm running with the baby, and I open the door, and by that point, Debbie had noticed, my neighbor had noticed that he was veering off and not turning at the sidewalk, and she went running down to get him. But in that 3 seconds, it was life-changing. So by the time we all calmed down, Michael and I had this lovely strategy back then where we would sit on the couch and cry when stuff like that happens. I've since learned that doesn't really get you far, although sometimes it makes you feel better for a little bit. But anyway, once we got through that, and had the worst day ever, and I beat myself up all day about the fact that I was not as rockin' a mom as I thought I was, I made the phone calls and held the meetings that we really needed to do. We got the IUP team together. We barked about mobility training and getting lots of hours in multiple different scenarios with the white cane. And you know what's interesting? And I have found this a lot on my journey with my guys. The stuff I'm most afraid of, that cane was the thing. I was even more afraid of that than Braille. And I think it's because it is that symbol to the world that you can't hide it anymore, right? And those of you going through it, I'm sure that you understand that. It sounds a little crazy from the outside, but you just can't hide it anymore. And it's that one really loud symbol. But man, I will never forget when Michael got that cane in his hand and had that first lesson being told how it could give him information. And he never turned back. He finally was relaxed. And he still, to this day, when he has that cane in his hand, there's a relaxation about himself and a confidence because he is fully independent. He doesn't have to necessarily rely on having things memorized and what if somebody moves something, the cane finds it for him. It gives him so much information and so much independence. So my recommendation is for those of you raising young blind children, as early as you possibly can, get one of those little tiny canes with the ball on the end. They don't even have to learn to tap it back and forth yet. They can roll it back and forth. Let them explore with it. I say that, take it with a grain of salt, because you have to also mom up, man up, and understand if your child is just not ready. My second child was not ready at 2.5 for that cane. There's days now when I'm like at 13, we still have some issues with that cane, especially when you wanted to see if what it would do to a stop sign one day. That was fun. I don't understand what goes through boys' minds sometimes. But anyway, my 2 children are very different. Michael was ready for his cane very early on, and he never turned back. Mitchell, we still have issues with using it properly and that kind of thing. But gosh, get it in their hands. Let them try it out. And if you're an adult and are struggling with the fact that is that solidifying piece of equipment that tells the world you're blind, Do it. Get it. Learn how to use it. You won't believe the world of independence it opens for you. And you know what? So what? It lets folks know that you're blind. And I think that that's helpful in a lot of situations. You're not banging into people anymore, which looks like you're just being rude or not paying attention, right? And especially with all the people walking around texting, you can protect yourself from all those folks too. But at any rate, my long story short is every year on our first significant snowfall, I'm reminded of the day that I thought I was a rockin' mom and getting things totally under control and in full acceptance of blindness, and realized that I wasn't. And it always makes me stop and think, what's ahead of us? What's coming down the pike? What do I need to be looking at to make sure that the boys are learning? What skills do they need to stay on their road of independence and thriving? So there's your thought for the day. The white cane is an amazing tool. Get it in the hands of yourself if you're losing your vision, or your child that's blind. Get it as early as you possibly can. And if you're in a part of the country where you've got snow, enjoy. Do some sledding. So there you go. That's our lesson for today. So enjoy. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next video here at Thriving Blind.